was at the graduate school, finished there in '71 with a degree in Master's in History. Taught school for a couple of years, then ended up in law school. Went home and was planning on going back to graduate school, hoping to teach someday. And got caught up practicing law, and then got caught up in politics, and never went back to school, stayed at home. Didn't have the opportunity, and I tell you this, it's just not me bragging, but it kind of gives some insight as to some of the background and some of the opportunities I've had to see things. I did serve on a city commission in Winter Haven, was mayor of my hometown for a period of time, short period of time, but so I got to see government working from that perspective. Was in private practice for a little while, served as an assistant public defender doing criminal defense work, and public defender doesn't see too many white-collar crimes, but we did have a few. And then got elected as a county judge, which is a trial court level in Florida in '82. Then was elected to the circuit court, which is the court of general jurisdiction in Florida in '84. And then was appointed to the appellate court in '99. And so I served 16 years in the trial court and 16 years on the appellate court as a judge. Saw lots of different things. But probably most of my stories will come from other than the courtroom, because I've also had the opportunity, I've been very privileged to be very involved with a lot of ventures related to the church. I was elected to the Board of Trustees here at Trevecca in 1979. I've been on the Board of Trustees until 2 years ago. Been on the District Advisory Board in Florida and served as chairman of the Finance Committee there for many, many, many years. Now, let me just stop right here and tell you, I never had a course in bookkeeping. I knew nothing about numbers, accounting, or anything. Okay? I knew nothing. And somehow or another, I found myself chairman of the Finance Committee in a local church, chairman of the Finance Committee on a district, and at one point in time, chairman of the Finance Committee for the denomination. I served on the general board for 24 years and was chairman of the Finance Committee for a couple of quadrennia there, and then served as chairman of the general board for the last 2 quadrennia. So I've been very involved in the accounting and the auditing and all. So a lot of my experiences have come from church-related entities, and unfortunately, when I get through, you may say you don't want to have anything to do with the church. Because there are things that happen in the church, and if I do nothing else, if I just sensitize you to the fact that you have to be ever diligent regardless of the person that you're working with, and you could be disappointed by the senior saint in your church can disappoint you, so please just understand when it comes to your professional role, you really need to be diligent. For example, I'll go first to the one that we were just talking about yesterday. I was on the District Finance Committee, and I got a phone call from a friend out of state who says, you need to check your district money. It's not all where you think it is. And I go, oh, come on. He says, nope. He said, you need to check them. So what had happened was that Florida had owned at one time a piece of land right across the street right across I-4 from SeaWorld. Have you ever been down in the Orlando area? SeaWorld's out there in I-4. The district owned the property right across the street. We weren't able to develop it because the county had some zoning regulations and they wouldn't let us do what we needed to do. So we sold it, and we got a bunch of cash, and we had put that cash in some, now this is a time, ancient history, I don't know if it'll ever happen again. Back then, you could put money in a money market account and get like 10% interest. And if you spread it around, all of them were guaranteed by FDIC. So we had, a couple $1 million scattered around between all these banks and money market accounts, $100,000 apiece, and they were all guaranteed. And that was our policy. We would not have any money except in a guaranteed account. Well, I went to the fella who was a pastor of church, and I said to him, he was our treasurer, and I said, is all of our money in guaranteed accounts? He said, oh yeah. Okay. So I went back to, well, maybe my friend's call me was wrong. So then a couple weeks later, I was going over the report that we would give to the district assembly, and under the assets, it had something that said receivable, or a note receivable, or something like that. And it said $100,000. and I asked the administrator in the office, I said, what is that? He said, oh, that's the money we've got invested in the investment fund. I said, what investment fund? Well, it happened to be the district superintendent's investment fund. Now, you see, what happened is, the district superintendent, who's a good man, he's honest, he and his sons, both of whom were professionals, his sons and the three of them got involved with a fellow in Chicago who had a way to get rich quick. He had this special plan where he could buy stock in New York and sell it in Chicago in a very short period of time. And this is back before computers became, all the computer programming came along. Sell it in a short time and he could make money off of it. So he was giving returns of like 18 and 20% returns on his investment. I said, how did this money get there? Well, the treasurer invested there. So I went to see the treasurer. I was a little bit upset. And I said, do we have money in this fund? He says, well, yeah. I said, you told me we did not have any money in an uninsured fund. He said, oh, it's insured. I said, what do you mean it's insured? He says, I gave the district a personal mortgage on my home. I said, a mortgage on your home? He said, yeah, that guarantees. I said, wait a minute. Number one, you don't have $100,000 of equity in your house. Number two, we're not in the real estate business. We don't want to foreclose on your house. We don't want to have to sell a house. And then I found out what he did was, he said, well, I really didn't invest the district's money. What I did was, I borrowed money from the district personally. Then I personally invested money in the investment fund with the DS and his sons. And what I'm doing is I'm paying the district. You're getting 10% from the money market. I'm giving the district 10%. What's happened to the rest of it? Well, that's my part because I'm the one who personally. I said, you can't borrow money from the organization for which you're the treasurer. He said, what? It's like going to the bank. I said, no, it's not. The banker can't borrow from his own bank. You can't do that. Now, this was a good man. And I want you to understand. Now, you're not going to believe this, but I'm going to tell you it's true. I don't think he really understood what he was doing was wrong. I think he thought that was just the way. Now, you're going to find, unfortunately, professionals, and I'm going to include in that ministers and doctors, especially, are gullible and believe what they want to believe when it comes to money. If you've got a devious mind and you really want to fleece somebody, the easiest mark is a medical doctor, because he's got money and he'll invest, or a preacher. They don't understand. They're the easiest mark. When it got down to it, I was so upset, and I wanted to challenge this man and go through the proceedings. Maybe I'm a little self-righteous, but I said, this man doesn't need to be a minister. I wanted to challenge his license. But I didn't want to, and of course, if you don't know, the Church of the Nazarene, if two laymen sign charges, you can have a trial as to a minister performing something doing something unbecoming a Christian. So I said, I'm not going to file charges, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I told this guy, I said, if you will agree, we'll call 3 ordained elders from outside this district that don't know anything about anything, we don't know me, don't know you, don't know anybody, and we'll explain to them what you did, and if they say they think it's okay, then fine, that's the end of it. But if they say it's not okay, you surrender your credentials. You know what he said? Sure, I'll do it. He was so confident that other men, they're going to say it's okay. Now, we were fortunate. We got our money back. Unfortunately, I kicked enough sand and made enough noise, and we demanded that we got our money back. But we got our money back in July, and that November, it came out this guy in Chicago wasn't investing money. It was familiar with that word? It was a classical Ponzi scheme. And there were lots of people who lost money in that because this district superintendent was a very, very nice man, very reputable man, a leading man in the church, and people believed in him, and he would go around and say, I can help you make money, invest, and he was funneling the money into this thing. He believed he was investing in an investment firm, and he really was being taken by a Ponzi scam, and lots of people borrowed money and put money in that fund and lost it simply because they trusted. Okay? You have to be diligent. You have to be, okay? As you know, in the corporate setting, and whether preachers like to hear this or not, running a church is like running a business. They don't want to hear the church is a business, but from the financial side it is. At the general church level, especially when you've got a $40 million a year budget, multinational corporation, you have to run things by some rules. And one of the things I have found over the last few years involved and pushing, we have to develop the proper accounting, the proper auditing procedures. And you know what I'm talking about. We have to have an outside auditor. Everybody know the name Sarbanes-Oxley? Okay, hopefully you know all about that. Sarbanes-Oxley technically does not apply to non-for-profits, non-for-profits. However, most non-for-profit, you follow Sarbanes-Oxley very carefully. We do that at Trevecca here. That was one of the good things we did when I was on the board. Okay, we have an outside auditor. Now, here there are two different positions I want to put yourself in. Put yourself in. You have an accounting degree from Trevecca, and you have been hired by the general church to come and work in the general treasurer's office in Kansas City, doing accounting work. Okay? There's going to come a time, once a year, January to be exact, in which the outside auditors are going to come in and audit. And there is a very definite role that management plays in that audit. Now, I'm not telling you this because I learned it from the books. I'm just telling you this what I've learned from experience. And what I learned from experience, and I may not match up with what's in the books, but I'll let the professor correct me. The role of management is to support and supply the outside auditors with the information they need. And the role of the so you may be in the position of being inside management team. And there's something that you and your boss knows that's going to cause some some heartburn, some internal gas with an auditor. And it may be better if they just didn't have that information. That puts you in an ethical dilemma. Do you reveal to the auditor, outside auditors, what you know they ought to know? Or do you do what your boss tells you to do and conveniently forget that's not there? Why? Nobody's going to know. And besides, this is the Lord's money, and we're building the kingdom. And if you understand those auditors will spend another $10,000 making a lot of noise over something that doesn't mean anything. And that's money that could be sent to Puerto Rico and put food on somebody's table. That's a real ethical dilemma. And you're going to say, that doesn't happen. Well, yes, it does. Now, on the other side, you're the outside auditor. And your firm has had a contract with the general church now for 5 years. And it's a lucrative contract. I mean, the church is paying big bucks for these audits. And management comes to you and says, you know it's really an insignificant detail, but this is the kind of thing, we've got this guy on our audit committee. He's the president of the general board. He's a lawyer, and he thinks he's an accountant, and he thinks he knows everything. And if you, this is such an insignificant detail, but if he gets a hold of it, he's liable to make all kinds of noise. It'd just be better if you didn't mention that. Oh, by the way, you do know we're putting our contract out for RFPs at the conclusion of this audit, and your firm will have to submit another RFP. And you're thinking your senior partner is going to say, what if you lose this account? What are you going to do? It really isn't insignificant detail. It really isn't that big a deal. Or is it? Let me tell you, real life experience. I was on that audit committee. We were not getting a portion of the audit materials timely. I started pushing the outside auditor. Why don't we have this? Why don't we have this? She looked over at the general treasurer, and the general treasurer bit her lip and nodded her head. And when she did, the auditor says, well, we don't have that particular area's audit because we found some indiscrepancies in their books. Indiscrepancies, what do you mean? I never went to accounting school. What are you talking about? They said, well, we found that the manager in that area has been writing checks payable to himself. We also found that there are checks written to Kohl's department store and to the local laundry and to the chiropractor's office. I said, what's he doing? Well, we also found the corporate credit card had charges at places. I said, how many indiscrepancies? What are we talking about? If I'm lying, I'm dying. $150,000 worth of indiscrepancies. Well, I got a little upset. I don't know anything. I don't know a debit from a credit, but I do know a crime. So I was charging in to the general superintendents and told them they had to. So they called the guy in, and the guy gave this explanation. Well, you know, in my area, I oversee some countries where we can't send missionaries in, but we have a church going. So what I do is I use the corporate credit card and corporate checks to pay my personal expenses. Then I take my personal cash and put it in the bank so that when we have somebody going to visit this foreign country where we can't have missionaries, they can take American dollars in. And he even said, in fact, I use general superintendents to carry money in. And I told the general superintendents, you're going to federal prison. You can't smuggle cash into well, I'm going to tell you, into Cuba. Now, you can get a license, you can get a permit. All you got to do is go to the lawyer and fill out the paperwork and get it. There's a way to get it done, but not this way. You get caught smuggling money into a foreign country like that, you can go to prison. Well, they finally resolved the issue by making him pay back about $30,000 or $40,000 of the stuff, and they accepted his word. I asked him, do you have any receipts from people in Cuba that you gave them cash? No. What do we have? His word. And the collected wisdom of the senior saints was, well, if he says it's okay, it's okay. And I said, do you realize, and this has been many years ago, and I don't talk about this much, but in a setting like this I will. I said, do you know, if I go out and tell the general church the way you're running this place, people can stop giving money. People, that's why it becomes, when you get out, when you graduate, because you have a degree in the field that you're in, people are going to want you to get involved, whether it's in the Little League organization or the PTA or your local church. They're going to want you to get involved and help manage finances. And the slightest little indiscrepancy can cause more problems. It's amazing how many times we find the president of the PTA skimming off the money. The treasurer of the Little League Association taking money out of the account, using it for their personal expenses. People are going to expect you to maintain. And the problem is, it's easy for us to sit here on this hill where the air is holy, as the preacher said last night, where the ground is holy ground, and think, I would never do that. And then you get out there, and there comes that dilemma. Well, it's not that big a deal. Everybody else is doing it. If you make a big scene, it's going to cause more problems than it's worth. If you just kind of go along, we can get along. And like I said, it's easy to read the textbook and say that never happened. It's easy for sitting here, but it does. It does. Had another preacher. His father was a missionary to Haiti, medical missionary. And while he was in Haiti, he saw that the locals down in Haiti would go to this one particular tree, and they'd cut the tree, and they would get the rosin out of the tree, and then they'd go over here and get some of this fruit juice, and they'd mix it all together, and it made a real nice salve, and they were using it to treat, and it was curing skin cancer. So he says, I've got the secret formula to cure cancer. Well, he's on his deathbed dying. His preacher son is standing by his deathbed, and he said, son, I'm going to give you the secret formula to cure cancer if you promise me it will be used for the Lord's work. I promised Dad. He gave me the formula. The preacher comes to see me. I'm practicing law in Haiti. He said, I need for you to set me up a company because we're going to develop this, and I have got the cure for cancer. And we can take this formula, the secret formula, and we can develop it into an internal medicine, and we're going to cure cancer. We've got the cure for cancer. And I said, well, you're a little bit above my pay grade here because I can organize a corporation for you. But what you're talking about is selling stock. And you start selling stock, you've got securities law and registrations, all that. And I said, I don't know anything about that. So I sent him off. Well, he went and found a guy.